Hi everyone, my name is Leo and this video is gonna be super interesting. We will check out NULL A1 versus NULL A2, both with NULL and aliasing test versus real tube amps. We will have the definite answer if NULL A2 is gonna really be a game changer and why. Guys, I'm really excited for this video. Before starting, let me give you a brief idea about how this video is organized. First, I will explain the main changes between A2 and A1, understanding both the A1 and A2 architecture. Then we will check out if and why these changes should have an impact in the resulting tone. In fact, we will perform our NULL test, real amp versus NULL A1, then versus NULL A2, and versus NULL A2 slimmed down, so that we will have a clear idea also about how much quality we're gonna lose slimming down the A2 profiles. But that's not all in terms of tone. In fact, we will perform some aliasing tests with really super interesting results. Then we will also hear some dynamic range and the note envelope test, and I will wrap up everything in my 2-cent section. I really hope you are gonna enjoy this video as much as I enjoyed doing it, and please subscribe and ring the bell to help me to create more content like this. Let's start! For those who don't know, NULL is a free open source software that records your amp's sound and turns it into a digital model that you can play in real time through a plugin. You feed it a clean DI signal and the signal recorded from your amp, and it learns to replicate the exact sound using a neural network. The A2 architecture is the last evolution of the platform, and it has introduced many changes. But to fully understand those changes, let's describe A1, I mean the original architecture. A1 uses an architecture called WaveNet, organized as two stacks in series. Think of them as two brains, working one after the other. The first brain is the big one, 16 channels. Think of channels as 16 different ears listening to the signal at the same time, each one picking up a different aspect of the sound. The first brain processes the signal and passes it to the second one, which has 8 channels, 8 ears. The second brain refines the result and produces the final output. Each layer in the network looks at the signal through a filter that's 3 samples wide. That's the kernel size. And here's where a clever trick comes in: dilations. The first layer looks at the 3 adjacent samples, the second looks at the 3 samples spaced 2 apart, the third spaced 4 apart, then 8, 16, all the way up to 512. This lets the network look back in time without using too many parameters. Each stack uses the classic doubling pattern, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and so on. That's 10 layers per stack. How far back can it see? Total receptive field is 4093 samples, roughly 85 milliseconds at 48 kHz. So, around 85 milliseconds if my math is right. It might not sound like much, but it's enough to capture most amplifier characteristics. Between each layer, the signal passes through a mathematical function called tan. Think of it as a smooth compressor. When the signal is small, it passes through untouched. When it's loud, it gets gently squashed. This smoothness matters. It produces harmonics that roll off quickly, which means aliasing. Those annoying digital artifacts that sound like a metallic fizz on high notes. The catch? Tan is expensive to compute. A2 changes the approach fundamentally. Let's go through every difference. Instead of 2 stacks of 10 layers, A2 uses 3 stacks of 7 layers plus a special degridding section with 2 additional layers. That's 23 layers total versus A1's 20. But the real difference isn't the number, it's the pattern. A1 uses the classic double deletions 1, 2, 4, 8 up to 512. A2 uses a completely different pattern found through automated hyperparameter optimization. The pattern is 1, 3, 7, 17, 41, 101, 239. These aren't random numbers, they were specifically tuned for optimal frequency coverage. And then there's the gridding section. When you repeat the same deletion pattern multiple times, which both A1 and A2 do, you get a gridding effect. The network develops blind spots at regular intervals, and this shows up in the sound as a subtle metallic ringing on transients. A2 adds 2 special layers with a much larger kernel size of 15 and deletion of 1 and 13. These break up the regular pattern and smooth out the ringing, as far as I understood. Let's now calculate A2's receptive field step by step. So in the window you can see the mathematical formulas, and the total is 6,347 samples, so roughly 132 milliseconds at 48 kHz. So if my math is right, A2 has 132 milliseconds at 48 kHz. Now, 132 milliseconds is significantly greater than A1 with 85 milliseconds. The network can hear farther back in time, which means it should better capture sustain and slow dynamics much better. All the things that make an amp feel alive and responsive under our finger. Furthermore, it should even be better at capturing amp plus cabinets. That is what I typically capture. Furthermore, A1 uses the same kernel size of 3 everywhere, where A2 mixes them, 6 for most layers and 15 for the degridding layers. A larger kernel means each layer sees more local context. Combined with the optimized deletion, this gives A2 its massive receptive field. But the boldest choice in A2 is that the smooth tan activation gets replaced by leaky ReLU, a much simpler function. If the signal is positive, it passes through. If it's negative, it gets simply slightly attenuated. That's it. The advantage, leak ReLU is faster to compute. This frees up CPU headroom that gets reinvested into making the network bigger and more accurate. It means that at the same CPU budget, a larger network with a lighter activation consistently outperforms a smaller network with tan function. The theoretical downside, leaky ReLU has a sharp corner at 0, and that corner should generate harmonics that don't roll off as smoothly as tans. In theory, we have more aliasing. But A2 has a solution for that. This is arguably the single most important change. A2's head has a kernel size of 16. It looks at a window of 16 samples and mixes them together. Why does this matter? Because that window of context lets the head actively shape the high-frequency response. It can smooth out the aliasing artifacts that leaky ReLU introduces. Think of it as a smart, learnable anti-aliasing filter built right into the network. The net result, leak ReLU creates the problem, the convolutional heads solves it, and the overall accuracy is higher because the network is bigger and better engineered. How cool is that? Another change is that A2 trains 2 network sizes simultaneously, A2 full and A2 light. They are packed into a single NUM file. But that's not all. A2 has also an improved loss function. A1 optimizes purely for ESR, error to signal ratio, which measures sample by sample accuracy. A2 adds MRSTFT, multi-resolutional short-time Fourier transformation. This means A2 doesn't just try to match each sample, it also tries to match the frequency spectrum at multiple time scales. The result is a model that sounds perceptually closer to the real amp, even if the raw sample error is similar. Now, just to summarize, here you have a comparison table with all the main differences between A1 and A2. As you can see, A2 is significantly different compared to A1. We have a different structure, different activation functions, deletion layers, etc., etc. Really a drastic change. But are all these changes also improving the tone our ear perceives? Let's find out. Before continuing, I kindly ask you to subscribe and ring the bell, as this video took me a lot of time and it would help me to create more content like this. Let's now perform our beloved null test, then we will check out the aliasing, and then I let you hear some dynamic range and not envelope test. And finally, we will wrap up everything in my 2 cents section. For those of you who are new to the channel, the null test is based on the principle that if we play 2 sounds at the same time with one of them phase inverted, the lower is the resulting integrated LUFS, the more the 2 sounds are similar. So let's perform the null test NULL A1 plugin versus real tube amp. So we have a minus 45.6 integrated LUFS, and now NULL A2 plugin with a slim parameter set to 1. So we have a minus 46 LUFS, and now NULL A2 plugin slimmed down. We have minus 43.8. So, summarizing, NULL A2 slimmed down, minus 43.8. NULL A1, minus 45.6. And NULL A2, minus 46. Basically, NULL A2 is a tiny bit better compared to A1, where A2 slimmed down performs worse compared to both A2 and A1. Now, considering that A2 is less taxing to the DSP, it is already a great result. But this is not the whole story. Let's now talk about aliasing. If you don't know what aliasing is, you can check out my dedicated video in the channel. Aliasing is responsible for those annoying artifacts that typically modelers and profilers produce and that are also bad to listen to, very bad to listen. Now, aliasing was really the weakest part of NULL A1, as I said many times in my videos. Does A2 improve aliasing? Is it any better? Let's now hear some aliasing tests. First real amp, then A1 and then A2. And then we will compare all the 3. Please notice that I run some sweep tones, so be careful. Now look at this graph. Look at how A2 is way closer to the real amp, especially in the high frequency range. And if you look at A1, basically all the highs produced that are not in the original amp are produced because of aliasing, in my opinion. This, guys, is a real game changer. This is really where A2 brings gold to our table. The A2 aliasing is much better managed compared to A1, and especially in the high frequency, A2 is way more similar to the real amp compared to A1. This is really what excites me the most. Here I want really to congratulate with Steve Atkinson and his team, because they succeeded in something truly valuable. Thank you for this great achievement. Let's now jump to my 2 cents section and wrap up my final considerations. Welcome to my final considerations, where I'll try to wrap up my findings answering the big question: what are the real benefits? What do I really hear? First of all, way less aliasing on high notes. If you have ever played a NULL model with high gain and noticed a subtle fizz or graininess on the high strings, well, that's aliasing. A2's convolutional head actively suppresses it. Then I can hear less ringing on transients. That subtle metallic reverb you sometimes hear on peak attack is less pronounced, and probably the degrading layers specifically target that artifact. We have more natural dynamics. The 132 millisecond receptive field means the network captures sustain, sag, and slow amp behaviors much better than A1's 85 millisecond window. This should also be a benefit pretty substantial when we capture amp plus cabinet. That is the way I prefer to create my profiles. We have also a bit more accuracy. I mean, also the NULL test is a bit better. Probably the MRSTFT loss pushes the model to match the real amp's frequency content, not just its waveform. The difference is really tiny, but probably you can hear it. Of course, we gain flexibility. One NUM file, two sizes, full quality for recording, light for live performance with less CPU. No more choosing between standard, light, feeder and nano that we have to do with A1 architecture. So guys, here you have it. A2 is finally a very big step forward, in my opinion, especially in terms of aliasing. And that's probably the reason why people who have participated to Steve's test enjoyed better A2 versus A1. We have a tiny increase in terms of capture accuracy, but now our profiles should be much more pleasing. At least that's also what my ears tell me. A2 basically improved what was already the best profiler in the market. So what are all the big brands waiting for before adding NUM to their machines? So what can I say? Thank you, Steve, and all the team of people that has worked on A2 for everything you have done. Really, congratulations. Thank you so much and see you soon in the next video.